It's always useful to remember what people have said and not to forget the campaign promises that are given during the heat and enthusiasm of a leadership election. So here's a brief reminder of the Prime Minister's campaign video back in the summer of 2022. It was called Ready for Rishi. It was a pretty impressive video and pretty clear. That wonderful shredder going and 2,400 EU regulations being passed through it. Since then, we discovered there are actually 4,000 that could be passed through it, making the shredder work even harder and even faster. A really clear commitment backed up by the pictures to show what the intention of the Prime Minister was. But now we hear that a Cabinet committee is set to meet tomorrow to debate the watering down of the retained EU law bill. Now, I know that when I start saying retained EU law, everyone's eyes glaze over and they think it's time to put the kettle on. But this is about the laws that were made by the EU still governing us. Just think back to all those years when we're in the EU and it spewed out rules that we thought were ridiculous, that interfered with the nitty-gritty of our life, that made life more expensive and made the UK less competitive, that year in, year out made the fortress of the EU fail in comparison with growth economies. This is so important at the moment because when you're dealing with an inflationary problem, there are certain things that you have to do that are difficult. That's the Bank of England, it's tightening monetary policy, it's putting up the cost of mortgages. That has to be done to get inflation under control. But there are other things that can be done that are actually helpful. And these are improving the conditions for business, the so-called supply-side reforms, the deregulation, the making it easier for all of us to go about our daily lives, to buy goods, to buy services, to sell goods and to sell services, to be involved in export and import, to get goods in from other countries that may be cheaper, may in fact be better made than those required by EU product standards, which tend to be easily out of date and stifling. And if you don't believe me, just talk to Sir James Dyson, who knows a thing or two about making products that work and are popular. But we need to look at those laws that make us inefficient as an economy. Did you know that the Working Time Directive includes time when you may actually be asleep? Now, how can you be working when you're asleep unless you're Joseph and you interpret dreams? It simply makes the UK less competitive, or as uncompetitive as the EU is. We left. We voted to leave 7 years ago. The Prime Minister promised that he would deal with these laws, that he would give us these reforms. And now a committee is saying that that may not happen. It may not go that far. But does this have an electoral consequence? If you look at the local elections, Sky News has done a survey that showed some of the biggest swings from Conservative to Labour were in wards that had backed Brexit. And there's also the intriguing issue of leadership. We know that Conservative cabinet ministers occasionally think about who might be next. And you do wonder whether it occurs to them that being a staunch Brexiteer, actually delivering on what people want, may help them in the future. Not in the near future, of course, because we have a leader and we want to keep him. But eventually there will be a leadership campaign, and then people will no doubt refer back to how they behaved over this issue. As always, we want to hear from you. Let me know what you think. mailmog@gbnews.uk.